the new face of British work.
We are in danger of building a society where people are isolated and alienated.
The assembly line was a Sunday school picnic compared to what we find in a call centre today.
Well, what is the point of understanding media?
It's possible to open up a permanent link with the United States and later with every country in the world.
The whole shape of our economy will be changed by this new technology.
With its various methodologies, social science represents the most elaborate way we have of understanding and making sense of social change. Now that you've completed all 3 modules and completed the residential school, you're in a strong position to evaluate the various strengths and weaknesses of these arguments, and also the research methods that have been used to collect the data on which they're based. This will enable you to evaluate the other social science research that you read in the future. This week you've used a range of data sources and have had experience of the main methods of research in the social sciences: questionnaire surveys, textual analysis, observation, and semi-structured interviews. You've handled qualitative and quantitative data. After this residential school, you're going to have to work with this data, to evaluate it critically, and to link it with core arguments in information society debates. No one research method is best for everything, and the researcher's selection of a method will depend on various factors. You'll need to write in your TMA about the strengths and limits of some of the data you've collected. Here's some advice.
In terms of my own research, it's looking at issues to do with gender-technology relations. I think one of the main problems would be that there are so many ways in which to interpret the text. So the way I got around that in terms of my thesis was to take one particular theorist and apply her specific approach. It's complicated, but in its simplest form, what Haraway's approach means in terms of textual analysis is taking what's ordinary about a text and rendering it unusual. So trying to unpick the sort of social and economic and textual threads that go into making up any text. The reason I was interested in mountain biking, the first reason would be that it would be fun, a fun site to look at and something I could maintain interest in over a period of at least sort of 3 or 4 years. There were other interesting reasons I felt as well in terms of I was a mountain biker myself, and I found how people dealt with me as a woman was interesting, to say the least. And other reasons, like if you look at the history of cycling, it's a really good area to look at things like gender contestation. The first advertisement shows a woman called Missy Guillaume, who's a leading downhiller, and the second advertisement is Paolo Pezzo, who's one of the world's leading cross-country riders. Now, conventional kinds of approaches might suggest that what we're seeing here is, with images like those of Missy, we're just seeing a woman who wants to be a bloke. So sort of she's more of a boy than the boys are. And with Paolo, what we're seeing is a woman who's hyper-feminine in a lot of ways. But with the particular approach I was taking, basically I was arguing that while there might be the perception that Missy's more of a boy than the boys, actually that's not what's going on here. What's going on is a slight rearticulation of gender relations at the site of mountain biking. Missy isn't referred to as a man. You know, it's very clear in mountain biking narratives that she's a woman. So what we've got is a woman who can play as hard at mountain biking as the boys, who can be as rough and tough, who can break as many collarbones and all other bones throughout her body, but still very clearly be recognised as a woman in the context of mountain biking. With the second advertisement with Paolo, you've got a lot of assumptions going on that women and technology don't go together. So even though we have this hyper-feminine sort of articulation of who she is, it's still showing that women can be as technically competent as men can be. Another aspect of mountain biking I was interested in was not only looking at gender-technology relations, but also looking at relations around class and race and these sorts of things. So I also looked at a range of advertisements, which were very interesting for these reasons. In terms of, it seemed that mountain biking as a sport is essentially not only white, but also very, very middle class. And as a predominantly middle class activity, why people go into mountain biking, or at least part of the reason people might go into mountain biking, is to set themselves out as being different. Advantages of textual analysis. I think it's a good way to get to the nitty-gritty in terms of quite often texts, images, these sorts of things are presented as being very natural. And I think textual analysis is a really useful way to uncover what's actually going on behind that, the politics, the sociology, the economics, all of these sorts of things.
The most interesting part, I think, is actually engaging with people, because no matter how much you think you know, or how much you think you're aware of the issues within that, there's always something else to learn from the students. There's always something unexpected. I mean, I do deal with statistics also. I do engage in some quite large-scale questionnaire research, which that has its strengths in other ways. And I think its particular strength is getting general information really from a really broad, diverse range of people. And I think in a sense that's why the questionnaire approach has endured over all these years, despite all the criticisms that it's possibly, you know, they pretend to be objective and they're detached from, you know, that kind of direct engagement with people. It does have its strength in the same way that no other approach has got really, and that's that it can hit huge amounts of people, you know, similar time scale. It's very quick to get that information back in. It's relatively quick to process. I mean, it's actually easier in some ways to process questionnaire data than it is to process, you know, feedback that you've had from students in terms of interviews and other sort of qualitative data. I think you have to accept when you do questionnaires that you can never produce the perfect questionnaire. I mean, questionnaires have gone out and I've sort of thought, you know, I've missed something out. And an example of that was when I put together a questionnaire asking students about their uses of IT and various bits of technology within their homes specifically. And one of the things that I was asking them about was audio equipment. And I was saying, have you got a DVD player? Have you got a CD-ROM, etc., etc.? And I received one back saying, you know, no to all these things, but I have got a record player. And it's things like that that, you know, you're probably at a certain stage that, and you've forgotten where other people perhaps are. Just go in there thinking that there's only one method that you can use. Quite often there is only one method that you're allowed to use in terms of time and resources, etc. But I think be open-minded as to what that is. And obviously look at the textbooks, look at what's out there, take that advice, but always bear in mind that, you know, you are doing a piece of research that is specific to a particular place, a particular time and a particular context, and you have to use some intelligent judgments about what that best method is.